Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition it's Arkistas Ring, brought to us by Sammy. Arkistas Ring is a top-down perspective action game on the NES. There's a total of 31 different stages in Arkistas Ring. After you complete all 31 levels, you can replay them over and over again a few more times, and the levels get harder and harder because the enemies get faster each time. The ending is the same no matter what, but it's just a fun little added thing to the game. In this run, I will be playing through all 31 stages in Arkistas Ring. So here we go with Arkistas Ring for the NES. In Arkistas Ring, we play as the elf Christine, who lives in the Kingdom of Arkista. One day, evil ninjas and the Shogun come and steal the Ring of Arkista, which casts the entire kingdom in the darkness. So Christine, armed with only her bow, must go throughout the kingdom, fight many enemies, and get the ring back. You can immediately see that we have a top-down perspective a little bit similar to Zelda. At the bottom of the screen, you can see our health to the right. We have a placeholder for the key that you need to collect in each level in order to get through the exit. On the left side of the screen, you have your life count, as well as below that your inventory screen. So besides just her bow, she can collect a few different items to use to help her along her way. Right now I have the Thunder Wand, which will defeat any enemy that's undefeatable with just the bow. You'll have another wand which will defeat all enemies on screen, except for the ones who can't be beaten by the bow. You get a Fire Wand, which will allow you to throw out fire for one whole level. You'll also get pieces of armor that you'll add to your health meter. As you can see right now, I've already collected the first piece of armor, which is actually an armor piece. You'll also get shields, helmets, and a cape. You can also get extra lives, pieces of your health back, as well as potions which will refill your entire health, as well as a special item that you can't start collecting until stage 24. Stage 3 is where things start to get a little bit tricky because you have to get used to manipulating the enemies to get them to come towards you when you want to. Enemies are stuck on the same path depending upon where you are on screen, and moving to certain squares will allow them to go into other areas. As you can see, a lot of the enemies were just staying back and forth until I went over certain spots and then they started to come after me. You have to defeat a certain amount of enemies on screen on each map in order to get the key to appear. Sometimes it's all the enemies, and sometimes you'll still have a couple enemies left even after you grab the key. Stage number 4 introduces flying enemies that move around the screen in different patterns, which are a little bit of a pain to hit. You have to get to the exact right spot so that when they come up, you'll be able to hit them with your bow, or you can use the items to defeat all the enemies if you really want to. With the items that defeat all enemies, like the one I just used, what happens is it defeats all the enemies that were currently on screen. So if an enemy hasn't spawned yet, they won't be defeated by it. On that map you saw those black spots which will hurt you 1 damage per time that you stand on it, so you want to be careful of those. Stage number 5 begins inside of this labyrinth. We have bat enemies, which is a different type of flying enemy. They have a weird pattern of their movement, and you're going to see several types of these flying enemies throughout the game, and they can be rather annoying. Down here, in case you've taken any damage, you can get your health back by walking up to that cross pedestal at the bottom left corner of this map. Stage 5 also introduces the first of the false stairs. There's several different staircases as you can see, but only one of them is the right staircase. In several levels, it changes every time you play, so you're never quite sure where the right staircase is. And on certain levels, especially later on, enemies will keep spawning after every time you pick a false staircase. The item drops in the game are completely random, so you're never quite sure which ones you're going to be able to get. So the only thing that you do know, though, is that the armor, the extra pieces of health, will come in a certain order, though. When you finally get another piece of health, it's going to be the armor first, then the shield, and then so on and so forth. However, the enemies always spawn in the same places in each level, and they always spawn in the same order depending upon which enemies you defeat. So after playing the game a few times, you'll get to know where the enemies are going to be, and where is the best place to take them out from. With these blobs and other stationary enemies, you may want to wait a second for them to shoot out their projectile before moving in front of them to actually take them out. Stage 7 begins outside. We have these worms. There's going to be a lot of them on this screen. So standing at the right spot, you should be able to take out a lot of them in a row. The skeleton warrior walking back and forth can't be defeated. You can hit him and he'll fall down and break apart, but then he'll reform and start walking around again. Once you defeat the worms, the key will appear and you only have to go through the one set of blocks, so you don't really have to take out the other enemies on screen. This stage has more of those squid-type enemies that are laying around, as well as a lot of flying enemies. Usually on this screen, I like to use one of those items to wipe out all the enemies, as it takes out most of the ones that were on screen. When your inventory is full, you can't get any more items in it, but what the game likes to give you then is either more score, which will be like a 500 or 1000 score bonus at one time, or one piece of health back in case you have any health lost. The items that defeat the enemies that can't be destroyed normally with your bow is usually the item I like to waste the most, so if you have any of those in your inventory, they're really not going to do you that much good overall in the entire game, so if you have to use them, not that big a deal. The pendant that I picked up in the previous level consistently gives me score every time I make a step, so I keep going up by 100 every time I'm moving around. You can see that this level has a lot of false walls that you have to find in order to break through and get to the exit. You can't break the false walls in a lot of the stages until you actually have the key for that level. After collecting that last item, I now have all the spots available to me in my inventory. Watch out for the blue skull here. He's one of those enemies you can't defeat with just your bow, but thankfully he moves rather slowly and you can just sneak by him and get to the staircase. Outside here, we have more of the orcs we saw early on in the game. They like to throw axes at you as soon as they spawn, so be careful when walking in front of them. After you defeat all the ones down here, the key will spawn and you'll be able to make a way through the trees. You can see that one tree in that whole row of trees looks a little bit different, and that's the one we're going to have to break. The walking flame guys take a couple hits to kill, and you don't have to take out all of them, but you're probably going to get hit at least by that first one, since as soon as you're behind it, it turns around and fires at you. In this level, we have two new enemies introduced. We have the pink guys, which just walk around slowly. They're easy to take out like skeletons and orcs. The other enemy is the fairies that fly exactly like the bats. Those are probably the more annoying of the two because of the way they move. Stage 13 is a real pain because it's a ton of those fairies. Take out the first two and then work your way over to the bottom area so you can take out a couple of the other ones that are going to be coming in on you. The best strategy is just to find the right place so that you can take out multiple ones at a time before they end up running into you. Use one of your items to destroy all the enemies that you can't normally hurt with the bow, just to get rid of those black monsters that were crowding around the door that we need to get to. Stage 14 introduces another new enemy, these bug enemies that spawn from these 6 different panels that are laying around. Getting to the right spot, you can get them to bunch up and just take out a whole row of them at a time. Once all of them are taken care of, a blob appears in the southern area of the level, so you have to take out that stationary blob before the key will actually appear. There's a boss in the next stage, so be sure to go to the cross if you need any health. Stage 15 is the first of the mini-bosses in the game. He doesn't appear right away, so you're going to have to take out a few of the flying enemies in order to get him to appear. Once you defeat a certain amount of them, the boss will appear. Use your fire rod and attack from here.